women's competition. We have the World Cup, the Women's World Cup this summer in France with 3 African teams. And we are investing in youth, in women, thanks to the work of all of you and of all of your countries. In the last 30 days, ladies and gentlemen, I've been visiting 10 African countries and I've been meeting many of you. And I know that I can count on your help the same way that you can count on our help. We have also, for the first time in 112 years history of FIFA, appointed in 2016 a woman as a General Secretary. And this woman is African. It's Fatma Samoura from Senegal. She's here somewhere in the room because you can find competence in managerial positions in Western Europe, but all over body. We have to embrace, of course, the whole because on 3 areas of governance, because allow matches to be fixed, and for this we need the second area. But in 2019 we cannot anymore die if we go to watch a football game. We want to help kids. Through football we can teach respect, respect for a referee, respect for the opponent, team spirit, teamwork. We teach our children to win, but we teach them as well to lose. And when you lose, you know that there is a next game coming that you can then try to win. And this is the philosophy of football that we want to give to our children. And ladies and gentlemen, this is just the beginning. So FIFA is your partner. Football. Muito obrigado. Merci beaucoup. Vive le football et vive l'Afrique. Thank you.
And also I would like to recognize my former colleagues, foreign ministers, whom I have met many of you here. Felt so nostalgic when I get into this room, because in this room we have been here together, doing many things like what you're doing now. Our success is a powerful statement of what Africa can achieve when it unites around a common purpose. Now, it's time to unite around new purpose, the health of all Africa's sons.
فخامة الرئيس بول كاغامي.
Your Excellency President Paul Kagame, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, my dear brother Moussa Faki, I'm honored to take part with you once again at the invitation of my brother Moussa Faki to this important summit. Reflects the distinctive historical relations between the League of Arab States and the African Union, and consolidates the pillars of our institutional cooperation towards achieving the supreme common interests we aspire to. Your summit today is being launched under a theme which in fact addresses a common and mounting challenge that our nations face. IDPs, migrants, are the I consider that both Arab and African arena adoption of Excellencies, ladies, but through convening constitutional and electoral processes the Libyan people aspire to. I also highly value the advanced cooperation between the League of Arab States and the African Quartet, along with our joint efforts to make more effort together in order to address other conflict situations and support stability in the area of common convergence between the Arab world and Africa. We call here for enhancing our common endeavors in Somalia in support of the federal government and the implementation of its national security and development plans. We look forward to pursuing our cooperation in support of the Comoros and its stability, the national dialogue among its people, and the elections that are about to be held. We reiterate our readiness to enhance our coordination with you in support of peace and stability in South Sudan and assisting our brothers there in implementing the agreements they reached in Khartoum and Addis Ababa. and would like to stress our solidarity with the countries of the Sahel region in confronting the terrorist threat of Boko Haram. And we stand with you in implementing your initiative to silence the guns throughout Africa by 2020, and with retaliations in the Horn of Africa, in which you are aware of the Arab contribution is sponsoring and promoting. This cooperation will represent the primary pillar of the joint Arab-Africa plan of action that we're working to complete with the AUC and referred to by my brother Moussa Faki in accordance with the resolutions of our last summit. It will be submitted to the Honorable Foreign Ministers of Arab and African states with a view of their support to the forthcoming Arab-Africa summit in Rio. Of this code, all international unilateral measures come in conclusion August Union, and with the incoming Egyptian president that he will give the next year to congratulate him. Before concluding, and with your permission, I would like to be excused. I need to go to Lebanon and have to visit the President of Lebanon and the Prime Minister. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
President, I'm sorry to leave, but I have to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretary General. I now have the pleasure of inviting the Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Antonio Guterres, to deliver his statement.
Your Excellency Paul Kagame, President of Rwanda and Chairperson of the African Union, Your Excellency Moussa Faki Mahamat, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. Allow me to begin on a personal note linked to the theme of this year's meeting. In the search for durable solutions to forced displacement, the world, and indeed I personally, have drawn constant inspiration from African leadership, African vision, and African compassion. Despite the continent's own social, economic, and security challenges, Africa's governments and people have kept borders, doors, and hearts open. Unfortunately, generosity is not proportional to wealth. Africa has set the gold standard for solidarity. The 1969 OAU Refugee Convention goes beyond the landmark 51 Refugee Convention. The Kampala Convention on Internally Displaced Persons is the first and only regional convention of this kind. And African leadership was vital to secure the adoption of two pivotal global compacts on refugees and on safe, orderly, and regular migration last year. But these conventions were already coming to life in every corner of the continent through the spirit of African compassion. I will never forget seeing Liberian farmers share their seed rice for the next planting season to feed desperate newcomers fleeing civil unrest in Côte d'Ivoire. I will always remember the electric air of joy returning from Tanzania, joined the repatriation convoy to South Sudan, or woman refugee I met in Doloado, Ethiopia. She had walked 2 weeks and lost 3 of her 6 children along the way before finally finding desperate needed safety and care. Over many years, it has become clear to me Africa's generosity to those seeking havens from war and persecution is unmatched. As High Commissioner for Refugees, I greatly admired and depended on that solidarity. And from day one, as Secretary General of the UN, I have been determined to forge ever close ties between the United Nations and Africa. And indeed, there has been a quantum leap in our strategic cooperation with the African Union. We have signed joint frameworks on peace and security and on sustainable development. We have institutionalized UN-AU annual conferences at the summit level. We have conducted numerous joint high-level visits across the continent. And Chairperson Faki and I recently signed a joint declaration on cooperation for peace support operations. The AU Commission and the UN Secretariat had our first an encouraging step on a critical issue. I would like to highlight peace and security, sustainable development, and climate change. On peace and security, strong winds of hope are blowing across the African continent. The African Union's efforts to silence the guns by 2020 are gaining ground, and the UN surge in diplomacy for peace is producing results, and the fruits of our strategic partnership are indeed making a difference. Ethiopia and Eritrea have shown in the Central African Republic, mediated by the African Union with the support of the UN, is an important step on the long path to ending bloodshed. In South Sudan, the agreement facilitated by IGAD between the parties to the conflict has revitalized chances for peace. And in Libya, the ceasefire in and around Tripoli, brokered by the United Nations, is still holding, despite all difficulties. Our efforts have helped stabilize the currency, brought some measure of economic relief, and enabled a realistic prospect for security reform. Now it's time to help unite the Libyan people to advance the political process through a national conference, paving the way for reconciliation and future elections. All this remarkable progress in conflict resolution in Africa shows the determination of the African Union and the United Nations. And a similar story is unfolding with respect to prevention. I welcome the first peaceful transition of power in the Democratic Republic of the Congo since independence in 1960. In Mali, presidential elections were successfully organized in line with Mali's constitutional and legal frameworks. And in Madagascar, the peaceful presidential elections are testament to the responsibility of national stakeholders and to our close cooperation. Excellencies, it is in this context of renewed hope that we increase our mutual support to peace operations in Africa. To consolidate and build on our gains, I have launched the Action for Peacekeeping initiative to enable UN missions to be more effective, better equipped, safer, and more robust. And I thank African member states and the African Union Commission for endorsing these efforts. African countries provide nearly half of all blue helmets deployed worldwide, including some 2/3 of all women peacekeepers and the majority of the United Nations police. Their service and sacrifice are always at the forefront of our minds. Just yesterday, 3 Ethiopian peacekeepers serving in the United Nations mission in Abyei were killed when their helicopter crashed. I want to extend my deep solidarity and condolences to their families, as well as to the government and people of Ethiopia, wishing a speedy recovery to all those injured. But our peacekeeping operations are increasingly being called into areas where indeed there is no peace to keep. And that is why I've been repeatedly expressing my support for African peace enforcing and counter-terrorism operations. And I salute the sacrifices of the African soldiers in AMISOM, the G5 Joint Force, and the multinational Joint Task Force in the Lake Chad region. But to be fully effective, those African peace operations require robust mandates from the Security Council and predictable, sustainable financing, including assessed contributions. And you can count on my full support fighting for that purpose. And I also welcome our joint advocacy for women's leadership in peace processes and political agreements. Groups such as FemWise and the African Women's Equality, Meaningful Participation and Leadership are critical.
We all know that we cannot. The United Nations community is development goals and to combat climate change. The world is not doing enough, neither is it acting fast to make good on the promise of making sustainable development a reality. At this rate, we are only going to achieve 50% of the work that we set for ourselves, and financing is crucial. Developed countries have to honor the obligations of the Addis Ababa Plan of Action, and I want to congratulate African countries for mobilizing national resources thanks to fiscal reforms and fighting against corruption and ensuring good governance. But at the same time, the international community has to be more effective in the way it works in order to combat the illicit flow of capital, money laundering, and capital flight, which continue to drain vital resources from the African continent. And most of this goes to the developed world.
We have another mighty challenge before us. Climate change is still moving much faster than our efforts to slow it. Just particularly here in Africa, which has least responsibility for the crisis, but will shoulder some of the heaviest burden. Global emissions continue to rise, and the essential target of limiting warming to 1.5 degrees is becoming ever more elusive. We need more ambition on mitigation, on adaptation, on finance, and on innovation. And I will convene a climate summit in New York in September to spur action by political leaders, the business community, and civil society. And this includes mobilizing the $100 billion a year for climate action that were pledged by the developed world. Excelências, permitam-me que termine com duas palavras na minha própria língua, em português.
Allow me to conclude with a few words in Portuguese, my language. We have major challenges, but there are winds of change that are blowing. Africa is advancing with optimism, and the United Nations is going to continue working with you towards a peaceful and prosperous future for all and the African people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. I now welcome His Excellency Mahmoud Abbas, President of Palestine, to address the Assembly.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of the most merciful, Excellency, Majesty, heads of state, heads of delegation, Right Honorable Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, ladies and gentlemen, I greet you all. I have the pleasure to meet with you again and also to express my gratitude for having invited me to attend this summit, and we wish full success to your deliberations and in order to attain the objectives. I would like to express my gratitude and appreciation to President Paul Kagame, President of the Republic of Rwanda, on the success of his term, and also during 2018, and all the achievements made during his term of office. We wish the Egyptian chairmanship that will take over the mantle, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, success in 2019, and we are convinced that he will score victories, and also with his wisdom, and also make the African Union make more progress and achieve more prosperity. We express our congratulations to the heads of state and brothers who have been elected in 2018, and we wish them full success in the service of their countries. I will obviously not forget Equatorial Guinea, Cote d'Ivoire for their solidarity since that Palestine causes and just causes across the world. Mr. Chairman, we appreciate the concretization of the achievements made by the African continent and for the social well-being and prosperity of the peoples, and also for empowering women and youth, in addition to your efforts in the fight against terrorism, extremism, and the efforts that you make in order to consolidate your infrastructures and in all parts of the world, of Africa. We note with satisfaction the democratic transition and the speeding up of the political, economic, and social reforms processes in most of the African countries, as well as the dialogue that prevails over discord and the peaceful transition of power. I want to congratulate the President of Ethiopia, Madam Sahle-Work, on having been heralded to this Parliament and actively contributing to the economy and the business world of Rwanda, and what has been achieved recently with the ironing out of difficulties between Ethiopia and Eritrea, and also thanks to dialogue and the positive initiative and tolerance that has led to the peace and also harmony and through. We reject all forms of terrorism and extremism, whether it is religious extremism or any other type, and which are afflicting and affecting the African capitals. The deplorable acts, and Kenya has been a victim of those acts. We are ready to fully cooperate with our brothers to be able to make use of our experience and to be at the service of the countries that want to approach us. We want to express interests of the members of the group and particularly African countries, as well as the other regional groupings, whether it is sectoral, geographical, and the objective that we have set for 2019. We will obviously, within the framework of solidarity and the partnership and cooperation with states of the South as well as of the North, and within the framework of the tripartite cooperation, to implement the prospects within the framework of 2030 agenda, to eradicate poverty, that scourge, in order to mobilize the necessary resources for drinking water, improve the quality of education and health in order to ensure gender equality, and also to save and safeguard our society in the affairs of the states, and this is what we are witnessing as we can see what they are doing in Venezuela. We call upon the African Union and all the member states of this union so that they can support the idea of convening an international conference, and that they can participate and support the peace process, and also they can send observers in order to observe the general elections that we want to organize with the participation of our people in Jerusalem first, that is Al-Quds, which is the capital of our state, then in Gaza and in the West Bank. We obviously warn against all attempts of Israel to denature the character and change the characteristics of Jerusalem, and we obviously plead to other countries not to transfer their embassies to Jerusalem, which will be in defiance of all the international and United Nations resolutions, and particularly Resolution 478 adopted in 1980. Mr. Chairman, we are proud of the depth and the solid relations of the African Union with of Palestine. The confrontation with colonization, the racist policies, and the strengthening of the rights of the people have always witnessed the cooperation between the African continent and the people of Palestine.
Des citoyens et des peuples africains. La zone continentale de libre-échange a été signée et moins d'une année après, elle devrait entrer en vigueur grâce au rythme accéléré des ratifications. Nous aimerions féliciter la Guinée-Bissau pour avoir signé l'instrument de la zone continentale pendant ce sommet. Et nos remerciements vont aussi au Botswana et à la Zambie. Et nous encourageons ceux qui n'ont pas encore ratifié ce traité à le faire le plus rapidement possible. L'année dernière, nous avons pu renforcer nos partenariats avec d'autres régions, aussi bien dans le fond que dans la forme, et cette tendance ira en s'accentuant. Le fonds de la paix, qui a été redynamisé, compte maintenant 89 millions de dollars grâce à la contribution de 50 États membres. Cette situation témoigne de notre détermination collective et nous continuerons d'œuvrer avec les Nations Unies pour mettre en place un mécanisme durable. Et à ce niveau, Monsieur le Secrétaire général des Nations Unies, je voudrais vous remercier pour avoir mis en place un partenariat fort entre les Nations Unies et l'Union africaine. Donc nous avons un mécanisme durable pour le financement d'opérations de maintien de. Nous félicitons de l'accord récent de paix qui a été signé entre les parties en République centrafricaine et voudrions remercier la Commission et les États membres concernés qui ont appuyé ce processus. Cet accord doit être mis en œuvre et respecté par toutes les parties. Lors du jour, notre union à s'attaquer à des défis et à des priorités de plus en plus complexes. Nous allons examiner les expériences d'espoir au niveau de nos peuples lorsqu'il avait été présenté il y a de cela plus de 2 années. Nous sommes sur la bonne voie pour mettre en œuvre pleinement le protocole sur la libre circulation des personnes qui avait aussi été adopté l'année dernière. Hier, l'Union africaine a convoqué une conférence historique avec nos partenaires clés, notamment dans le domaine de la santé publique. Le contexte mondial actuel requiert de nous que nous augmentions nos financements propres pour les programmes de santé, car ces programmes ont déjà fait une grosse différence dans la vie de nos peuples lors des 2 dernières décennies. Je remercie les nombreux chefs d'État et de gouvernement qui ont contribué à la déclaration sur ce sujet, laquelle déclaration sera examinée par notre conférence. L'avenir de l'économie mondiale sera numérique. Lors de ce sommet, nous allons examiner des lignes directrices pour une approche africaine commune à la gestion de l'identité numérique. L'objectif d'une telle initiative est d'accroître l'inclusivité économique et d'accroître aussi la confiance que les citoyens peuvent avoir en nous, surtout dans le contexte d'une intégration régionale de plus en plus forte. Mais ceci n'est qu'un premier pas de ce qui devrait être un effort constant, exhaustif, cohérent de la part de l'Union africaine et de la part de tous les États membres pour se préparer aux technologies qui sont en train de refaire le commerce international, en particulier l'intelligence artificielle, la robotique, l'exploitation des données et la cybersécurité. Jeunesse. Mais pour pouvoir occuper la place qui nous revient de droit, travailler en étroite collaboration avec les autres organisations régionales et le secteur privé, africain soit garanti, surtout lorsqu'il s'agit de données. Cette tâche urgente, soutien entier et sans aucune réserve. Et nous sommes convaincus qu'il faudra faire encore beaucoup de bons à... Je faillirais à mon toujours été présent chaque fois que nous avons eu besoin d'eux. Je voudrais donc les remercier infiniment, en particulier remercier le président de la commission. Il existe une autre équipe.
And be able to move forward with our Africa's agenda, and I also wish to say thank you to them. Once again, I thank all of you, heads of state, leaders in different capacities, and look forward to even more vibrant processes forward with the new chairman. Thank you very much. I now invite the head of delegation of Cameroon, Dean of the African Diplomatic Corps, to announce the Bureau of the Assembly for 2019 and the chairperson of the African Union for 2020. Cameroon, you may wish to speak from your seat, and you now have the floor.
The African Union, Excellencies, heads of states and government, the Chair of the African Union Commission, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. As it is customary, the incoming Bureau is constituted in the closed session before being made public during the plenary session of our conference. The composition of the Bureau is as a result of the consultations carried out here in Addis Ababa under the leadership of the General Dean of our Ambassador, and to elect the Chair of the Union for 2020. After consultations, the Bureau of the Conference for 2019 is constituted as follows. Chairperson, President of the Arab Republic of Egypt, His Excellency First Vice Chair, the President of the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa for the Southern African region. The second Vice Chairperson, the President of the Democratic Republic of Congo, His Excellency Félix Antoine Tshisekedi Tshilombo for the Central African region. The third Vice Chairperson, the President of the Niger Republic, His Excellency Mahamudu Issoufou for the West African region. The fourth Vice Chair, who is Rapporteur, President of the Republic of Rwanda, His Excellency Paul Kagame. It follows, therefore, that the next chairperson of the Union for 2020 is the President of the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa. Excellencies, these are the proposals tabled for your consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cameroon. Before we proceed, let me first of all express our apologies and move ahead to introduce. Amongst us, we have the President of Estonia, Kersti Kaljulaid, who is here with us. If you may stand up for recognition for. And tomorrow she will be with us for some event at lunchtime. So sorry to have omitted you in the introductions. I now congratulate the new members of the Bureau and the incoming chairperson of the Union for 2020 and wish them the best during their tenure. Excellencies, it is now time to hand over to the incoming chairperson of the African Union, His Excellency Abdel Fattah Sisi, President of the Arab Republic of Egypt. I request the protocol to escort the incoming chairperson to the rostrum.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
In the name of Allah, allow me to address you all and greet you and express to you my high appreciation and esteem, and to the peoples of Africa my best wishes. Your Majesties, Excellencies, Kings, Heads of State and Government, Your Excellency, President of the Sisterly State of Palestine, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to start by extending my gratitude and appreciation to my brother, the Right Honorable Prime Minister of Ethiopia, and the people of Ethiopia for the warm welcome and gracious hospitality extended to us, and express my thanks to my brother, His Excellency Paul Kagame, for his sincere endeavors to push the common African action forward and the efforts he's made as chairperson of the African Union, which have led to notable progress in the reform of the African Union. This will strengthen our Union's ability to take up to its important responsibilities against the backdrop of sensitive regional and international situation, where challenges and perils face the African interests. Egypt will spare no effort in moving forward on this path that we have embarked on together for the institutional, structural and financial reform of the Union, and in consolidating our achievements in view of deepening the sense of ownership of our organization and modernizing the tools and capabilities of the Union and its Commission in order to meet the expectations and hopes of the African peoples. Let me extend my most heartfelt congratulations to President Ramaphosa, the President of the Republic of South Africa, on his election as chair of the African Union for 2020. I'm confident that our cooperation as a Troika will reinforce the institutional continuity and the African common action, as well as the African solidarity. I am delighted to welcome the African leaders who are leading their delegations for the first time to these summit meetings of the African Union, and congratulate them in the confidence placed in them by their people, and wish them every success in their missions, and looking forward to cooperating with them to consolidate the African common actions. Ladies and gentlemen, let me thank Their Majesties and Excellencies for the distinct honor and the precious confidence placed in Egypt to lead in 2019 the African Union. This pushes for the African common action that dates back to liberation revolutions in the 50s of the last century. Egypt was then at the vanguard of political struggle against colonialism, which constituted then an important line of its foreign policy. Cairo was then an essential base for all African movements struggling for independence and national freedom. Here I am today before you, aware of the major responsibilities you conferred to Egypt to coordinate the common African actions in a delicate international and continental environment marked by extremism and terrorism and growing challenges facing the concept of the national state at a time when our people's expectations are constantly growing. It is a source of optimism for us to gather and reflect together on issues of interest to our continent, coordinate our march for the happiness of hundreds of millions of our children and grandchildren, which is the supreme goal of our work. More than half a century after the meeting of the Founding Fathers, who led together the cornerstone of African unity here in Addis Ababa in May 1963. Then the late Gamal Abdel Nasser said, let it be a charter for all Africans. Let's hold meetings at all levels, and let's start our economic cooperation towards a common African market. These words were uttered more than half a century ago, but they are still so topical. Since that historic date, Africa has made important steps and managed to make many dreams come true, overcome many hurdles, and addressed a number of challenges. Got rid of colonialism, even though its consequences are still remain. We are also striving in favor of peace, secure complementarity, and continental integration of our states and peoples. That common understanding and mutual respect are the best driving forces for our union, and that through our common determination we will be able to achieve the goal we set for ourselves. And as was said by late Kwame Nkrumah, in our the common challenges facing us, Africa is in the best position to understand the complexities of its problems and their specific nature, and therefore is best positioned to find serious and realistic solutions that would realize our people's interests and protect them from external interference and all sorts of contemporary exploitation. Despite our restless efforts to curb conflicts in our continent and ambitious plans crafted to silence the guns all over the continent, by 2020, you are all aware that the path before us is still long to quell the fightings in Africa. We need to pursue, therefore, our efforts to turn this painful page of Africa's history, which is undermining Africa's hopes of progress. We also need to protect ourselves with the shield of development in order to tackle the root causes of crisis. Here, I'd like to invite you, my brothers, leaders of Africa, to work together in order to revitalize our continental policy of post-conflict reconstruction and development, and to craft plans that would protect post-conflict nations from the dangers of regression and help them build their institutional capacities in order for them to protect their citizens and heal the wounds of their societies. We look forward to jump-starting in the near future the activities of the Post-Conflict Reconstruction and Development Center, which will be hosted in Cairo. This center will serve as a coordinating forum that will develop programs devoted to post-conflict nations, taking heed of their peculiarities and the right for reconstruction and development. Our work must continue to improve and strengthen peace and security in Africa in a holistic and sustainable manner as a strategic target in our continent. Mediation and preventive diplomacy will remain one of the priorities of the African Union. We will also further coordination and harmonization of peace and security mechanisms at the continental and regional level in order to ensure early and efficient response to various crises. Terrorism remains this cancer that affects African nations and attacks their structures and steals the dreams of their peoples. Counter-terrorism, while we are aware of the difficulty in uproot terrorism and strengthening the institutions of protective national states, closing the gap between establishing peace and stability and reaping the fruits of development rank high on the international agenda, and is a source of concern for political leaderships and rekindle hope. Ladies and gentlemen, our summit is held under the theme Refugees, IDPs towards durable solutions. Of IDPs has totaled about 18 million. This calls upon us to adopt a developmental approach that includes continental and regional major projects in view of ensuring a maximum of job opportunities to our citizens and map out reconstruction programs to rehabilitate the societies and safe environment for the return of our African continent through projects of clean and renewable national negotiations and discussions, multilateral discussions, which encourage us to enhance the African position and in defending our position, especially when it comes to the right of Africa, the historic right of Africa for a fair representation in the UN Security Council in accordance with the Isolini Agreement and the Sirte Declaration. The great African women are getting back their place, their pivotal place and their pivotal contribution to the African societies, and I would like to greet them and appreciate and express to them my appreciation for their efforts and for the sacrifices that have always been made. And to you, the ladies of Africa, I would like to say that before you is a bright future, bright prospects, and nothing would preclude you from realizing your dreams. And to empowering you. What you have to do is to continue your endeavors, and for us to open all the doors for you to make your dreams true. To the youth of Africa, the beating heart of this continent and its driving force, we are sparing no effort to map out plans and to leave for you a continent that's stronger than the one we inherited, and to open for you new prospects and to create for you tools that will enable you to lead a secure and strong Africa. Rest assured that we believe in you and we believe in your dreams. What you have to do is just to simply to work and to work seriously. You have to sow the seeds of a brighter future and avoid rushing into and venturing into dangerous migration. Please stay away from the clutches of extremism that will lead you to terrorism. To the partners of Africa in the world, I would like to say that partnership with Africa is a genuine opportunity to achieve common interests and also to have a win-win partnership. Africa, while insisting on its complementarity and integration, remains open to the world, and we will be striving to enhance our cooperation with our partners through doable plans with tangible results. We will also strive to broaden our African cooperation with all international partners in order to build the African capacities, transfer of knowledge, and also to modernize our infrastructure, industrial infrastructure. And from here, Africa is calling on the enterprises international enterprises of private sector and multinationals to invest in our continent. The markets of Africa are open and have conducive also to call in financing the development in Africa and secure the financial guarantees in order to enhance our trade and increase our investment, and remind them that each continent has its peculiarities and each country has its specificities. It is high time that for these institutions to think differently about Africa and to provide flexible criteria and terms that would help the African countries to realize their dreams in sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, our success in the achievements of the economic and social goals depends on our work together and addressing them hand in glove. And this requires the enhancement of the African common actions based on the three following pillars. First of all, to enhance the efforts of regional economic integration in Africa through the modernization and the development of its economic infrastructure, encouraging investment, especially as part of the flagship projects of the African Union, such as linking Cairo by road to Cape Town and the electric interconnection between the north and the south, and linking the Mediterranean with the Victoria Lake. The second pillar is the fast-tracking of the establishment of the African Continental Free Trade Area, which would lead to the reduction of the commodity prices and increase the competitiveness of Africa at the international level. Therefore, we need to strengthen our cooperation and scale up our efforts in order to make sure to expedite the entry into force of our agreement, of the AFCFTA agreement. We need also to strive to make sure that these commercial and economic body achieve realistic and tangible results in favor of our people. The last pillar I would like to refer to crowns the two previous ones, that is providing more job opportunities for our youth and attracting more resources. Your Majesties, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, our continent is looking at us and is expecting our work and our decisions, and we have no alternative but accepting this challenge and proving that the children of this land are able to strive in order to give a better world to our African people. Therefore, the African Common Actions is not an alternative any longer. It has become an unavoidable reality and an international environment filled with challenges and difficulties that we cannot face individually. Therefore, we need to turn our words and decisions into practical steps in order to prove to the world, to the outside world, that we mean what we say and that African solidarity is an effective entity that can sway on events. Our predecessors had the wisdom of unity, and from them we draw courage. This courage, as described by late Nelson Mandela, who said that courage is not the absence of fear, but it is the capacity to overcome it. It is our duty, therefore, to follow through this march with determination and inspiration by
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اسمحوا لي الآن أن احنا أعلن عن بدء أعمال القمة العادية للاتحاد الإفريقي 32.
Now open the proceedings of the 32nd session of our summit, and I would like first of all to extend my congratulations to the President of Madagascar and the President of the DRC on their first participation to the assembly of our organization. I would like to wish them a warm welcome and wish them full success in their marching missions. Let's start our work with the first item on our agenda, that is the theme of our summit, the refugees, returnees, IDPs, towards a durable solution to displacement in Africa. I'd like to express my appreciation for the choice of this theme for 2019, that is the refugees, returnees, and IDPs, which coincides with the 50th anniversary of the adoption of the African Convention of Refugees in 1969. And after 10 years of the adoption by the African Union of the African Convention to protect and aid IDPs, known as the Kampala Convention. And it also coincides with the increase in the number of refugees and IDPs and the exacerbation of human trafficking and the proliferation of political conflicts, internal and regional conflicts, which is increasing the number of refugees and IDPs. Therefore, it has become an obligation, a duty for us to work together to address these challenges through a comprehensive approach and innovative solutions that can be doable and applicable very quickly in order to overcome these problems and to relieve the sufferings of all African refugees and IDPs as part of the implementation of the principle of African solutions to African problems. Mr. President Teodoro Obiang, President of Equatorial Guinea, may I invite you to present the next item of our agenda, on our agenda.
السيد الرئيس أوبيانغ.
President Obiang, please.
Su Excelencia Abdel Fattah el-Sisi.
Your Excellency Abdel Fattah el-Sisi.
Los jefes de Estado.
The heads of state of the African Union, Excellency Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Excellency Moussa Faki, the Chairperson of the Commission of African Union, Honorable Ministers, Ambassadors, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor for me to accept the appointment as the leader of the theme of 2019 of the African Union as the year of refugees, returnees, and internally displaced persons. So, towards durable solutions, I accept voluntarily this appointment, and with your support, I'm convinced that we will make 2019 an exceptional year with durable solutions.
Desplazadas en África. También estoy seguro de que trabajando en solidaridad.
I'm convinced also that by working in consultation and solidarity with the member states and the economic regional communities, as well as the partners, we will succeed in our goals in terms of this theme. I'm convinced that this theme
we have reached and this migration which is extended and humanitarian crisis, and knowing very well that Africa is a continent that hosts the 3/4 of persons affected by this phenomenon, that is forced displacement. So as a result, we are faced with a challenge, and it's a big challenge that we need to take up. For that reason, we need, and for this we may not be able to achieve the objectives of the Agenda 2063 if we do not do what needs to do to address extended humanitarian crisis that we are faced with. The linkage between peace and security on one hand, and socio-economic development on the other hand, is a reality that we cannot avoid. These are matters that need to be dealt with jointly in order to address the root causes of forced displacement. During the humanitarian summit on forced displacement in Africa, to take place at the end of the year, I'll submit the outcomes of regional consultations which will be part of the declaration on forced displacement. This year will be it will be 50 years since the agreement on the OAU, which underpins specific aspects that relate to refugees in Africa, and also 10th anniversary of the Convention of the African Union on the protection and assistance to displaced, internally displaced persons in Africa, and we know it, which is better known as the Kampala Convention. And for all those reasons, allow me to make an appeal for the ratification and adoption and implementation of these conventions to strengthen further protection and assistance for refugees and vulnerable migrants in all the circumstances in which they might find themselves. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, you may recall that in January 2017, we adopted a new humanitarian architecture based on an African common position on efficiency with regard to humanitarian matters. This includes a framework, a policy framework on humanitarian crisis, and also it includes the creation of an African humanitarian agency. And all of these were considered during the summit that was held in Istanbul, in Turkey, during the month of May 2016. Now, this new architecture, contains a mechanism that should help and strengthen the relations between human beings and development, in line once again with the Agenda 2063. We also note that development also has an impact on human rights. In this regard, I would like to make an appeal to all member states and to the African Union Commission to accelerate the implementation of this, or setting up this structure. I would like to pay tribute to the African Union Commission for the work that's being done, and to the High Commissioner of the United Nations for Refugee Matters for having committed themselves in building capacity among the member states through the implementation of the humanitarian architecture drawn by the African Union, through a training program on laws and policies, commonly called the Livingstone Program. My country was honored to host in December 2017 a meeting of the training session, and also try to learn from previous lessons, and by doing so want to ensure that states are involved in implementing the Livingstone program. This training, I hope this training will be strengthened to contribute to building capacity within our member states through deepening knowledge at the regional and international level, especially with regard to leaders in our countries. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, before I conclude, I'd like to put emphasis on the following priorities that I would like to propose as a champion on this theme. We need to promote a strategy, a renewed effort to deal with the root causes of displacement. Let us see how we can fight against this condition. We need to support the African Union in the implementation of this new humanitarian architecture, especially by setting up the African Humanitarian Agency as a vehicle that would provide assistance in an effective manner to those that are affected. We need also to mobilize member states for the effective implementation of the convention adopted by the OAU 1969 and the Kampala Convention. We need to mobilize also resources to finance the humanitarian activities of the African Union, but also those of the humanitarian agents that will be set up. We expect a lot from our activities during the course of this year, and this is why we need to obtain concrete results, which then should have an impact on building capacity amongst our states to be able to address humanitarian crises. I reiterate the support of my country in this regard. And as I conclude, allow me once again to thank all the member states and the partners for their unfailing support and the interest they have expressed in helping displaced people in Africa. Thank you very much.
شكرا فخامة الرئيس.
I thank you, Your Excellency, Theodore Obiang, President of the Equatorial Guinea. Allow me now to give the floor to His Excellency, President Andrea Lungina, President of Madagascar.
Excellence,
Your Excellency, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, President of the Republic of Egypt, to whom I congratulate on your election as Chair of the African Union, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Your Excellency Moussa Faki Mahamat, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear brothers, dear friends, It is an honor and joy for me to be here in your midst today at the headquarters of the African Union, the Temple of Africa, to enhance the fraternal ties that unite us. We are gathered with a common determination to represent the pride of the African peoples. More than ever before, Africa remains able to overcome all the hurdles and its right to live in peace and prosperity. The words of the Voice of Africa today should be heard by all the world in its entirety. I'm proud, therefore, to voice not only my people, but also, and above all, an entire generation, that is the African youth. As many of African countries, next year, Madagascar will celebrate its 60th anniversary of independence. It will be the time to reap the fruit of hardships and hard work. And today, these celebrations, Madagascar is taking stock of the situation, of the achievements, and we notice the poverty and dependence that we're living in. Aware that Madagascar has just made an important step in its history and for its future, while my people have gained political maturity. And I would like here to thank the African Union for its support and help all along the electoral process in 2023 for the supreme interest of the nation, and in order to avoid any risk of popular confrontations, I've chosen the path of wisdom by accepting not to take part to the presidential election. But today, while having the confidence of the people, my people not only has chosen a young leader, but also a vision, a project, a program that has been turned into a convention that gathered an entire people in order to catch up the development delay of Madagascar. Through its economic and social history, Madagascar wants to take its place back at the international arena. Madagascar, as you know, is rich and poor at the same time. Do you think it is normal and acceptable that 50% of global gold is in the African continent, whereas we do not possess no gold reserve? Is it normal and acceptable that the African continent is the first cocoa exporting continent, whereas the chocolate producers do not even have one cocoa tree on their land? So we have always been told, be patient, and we have been grabbed out of our resources, and the pain that has been felt by our peoples and nations was high. Today, if we want a new Africa for our children, for our peoples, it behoves us all here in this hall to be committed to change the life of our citizens. Together, we can win all the struggles. We are not doomed to prejudice that affirm that Africa is and remains a poor continent. We need to change the image of Africa, and we need to make sure that it becomes a prosperous and developed continent. We do have all the resources and the energy to do so. Dear brothers, dear sisters, respected leaders, I'm probably the youngest head of state here in this hall, but patriotism and the determination to act do not wait for years. You are here hearing the voice of patriotism and African pride. I'm speaking for an entire people, an entire generation, and by declaring today, the 10th of February 2019, in the land of Ethiopia, that the development of Africa is not limited to debates, but should be translated into concrete and measurable and quantifiable actions. Hope is in Africa. Africa's renewal has started already. I thank you. I thank His Excellency, the President of Madagascar, and I would like to invite now President Felix Tshisekedi, President of the DRC, to deliver his statement.
Okay. Excellence, Monsieur Abdel Fattah al-Sisi.
Excellency, Mr. Abdel al-Sisi, the President of the Arab Republic of Egypt, heads of state and government, Excellency, the UN Security Secretary General, Excellencies, Excellency, the Chairperson of the Commission, ladies and gentlemen, it is my singular pleasure to be here today as the newly elected President of the Democratic Republic of Congo and to take the floor at the 32nd session of the Assembly. Firstly, allow me to thank the government and people of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia for the warm welcome and other courtesies extended to all my delegation and to me in person ever since we arrived here in Abyssinia. I acknowledge this beautiful country, the cradle of one of the oldest civilizations of the world and a symbol of African independence, which has now become a modern country and an African model for infrastructure, agriculture, and good governance. May I also congratulate Mr. Abdel Fattah al-Sisi for his election at the helm of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government. I am convinced that your sterling leadership and the historical and proven attachment of your country, Egypt, to Pan-African ideals will guide you as you preside over the destiny of our continent throughout your tenure. My heartiest congratulations to your predecessor, Mr. Paul Kagame, President of the Republic of Rwanda, and congratulate him for the dedicated and sterling work that he did throughout his tenure. He dexterously steered the reform process of the Commission while taking the initiative to ensure the organization's financial autonomy. May I also raise my hat to Mr. Moussa Faki, the chair of the AU Commission, for the laudable and relentless efforts to defend and uphold the objectives and principles of the Constitutive Act. The Republic of Congo would like to reaffirm its commitment to accompany this organization every step of the way. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is a fact that the Democratic Republic of Congo is attending this meeting today in a very unique context, which I am sure honors the entire continent. This unique context, in the aftermath of the elections that took place on the 30th of December 2018, is the very first time that we have a peaceful change of power since our independence. This peaceful transition from the previous president and the leader of the oldest opposition party proves wrong all those who thought that there would be chaos in the country after elections. This actually proves the political maturity of our people. Across our country, this democratic prowess was welcomed by our people who aspire for peace. And so it is with a true sense of responsibility and cognizant of the historical nature of this event that the people of my country have asked me to come before you. The change of leadership equally ushers in a new era based on this democratic achievement, and so unrelentlessly we need to further consolidate the peace and security that we've achieved, and also to build a country that promotes rule of law and also enhance good levelness and put an end to the armed groups that are wreaking havoc in some parts of our country, particularly in Benin and Butembo in northeast of our country. Our country has always suffered ever since it became Congo. The deadly wars that we have gone through should serve as a lesson to Africa and the international community never to condone or sponsor those who would want to inflict atrocities on our people. It is unacceptable that my country should continue to be the victim of its immense natural resources. However, through win-win partnerships, DR Congo is willing to chip in its contribution to any kind of action that seeks to develop its natural resources for the benefit of Africa and the rest of the world. Your Excellency, I would like to thank the Assembly
I thank His Excellency, the President of the DRC, and now I would like to invite Madame Bineta Samet, Commissioner for Political Affairs, to present to us the outcome of the meeting of the Executive Council this morning.
Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Your Excellency, the Chair of the African Union, Excellencies, distinguished heads of state and government, Your Excellency, Mr. Moussa Faki Mahamat, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Excellency, the Secretary General of the United Nations, the distinguished heads of states and government, members of the Executive Council, distinguished guests. It is my singular pleasure to take the floor here at the African Union Commission after the election of Your Excellency, the Chair of the Assembly. Allow me to congratulate you, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, President of the Arab Republic of Egypt, and also congratulate all the members of the incoming Bureau elected today. I would like to seize this opportunity as well to congratulate His Excellency Paul Kagame, the President of the Republic of Rwanda, the outgoing Chair of the Union. The humanitarian situation in Africa is a cause for concern, despite some of the progress made. The scope and the complex nature of forced displacement and inhuman situations continue to make the realization of Agenda 2063 very difficult. Not only Agenda 2063, but also the United Nations agenda. The causes of forced displacement caused by violent terrorism and extremism, lack of governance, the violation of human rights, the deterioration of our environment, and the uncontrolled consequences of some of our natural resources, the effects of drought and climate change, and also natural disasters are cause for the refugee situation. And in July 2018, in Nouakchott in Mauritania, your assembly decided to earmark 2019, the year of refugees, returnees, and internally displaced persons, towards durable solutions to forced displacement in Africa. Your unprecedented decision, and you mentioned it, the Chair of the Union, this actually is very significant because this marks the 50th anniversary of the OAU Convention of 1969 on the specific problems of refugees in Cameroon, and also coincides with the 10th anniversary of the African Union on the protection and assistance to displaced persons. As we seek to apply your decision of the Nouakchott decision, Commission proposed to member states a concept note and a roadmap that we called the 2019 project for the implementation of the theme of 2019. These two documents, which build on Agenda 2063 and the Common African Position on the humanitarian efficiency, were discussed in depth during consultations with member states, the organs of the African Union, the regional economic communities, bilateral and multilateral partners. The Executive Council considered all these issues and proposed to your august assembly a declaration which is the outcome of a long discussion on the theme of the year. And so it is my singular honor and pleasure for me to take the floor here on behalf of his, on behalf of the chairperson of the Commission, Mr. Faki Mahamat, to present this declaration to you. Now, talking about the declaration, the preamble actually recalls your commitment, distinguished heads of state and government, your commitment to work towards achieving the noble objectives of Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, by addressing the root and structural causes of forced displacement and finding lasting solutions to humanitarian crises. The provisions of this declaration actually build on Agenda 2063 and focuses on 3 priorities. That is, to particularly address the root causes of humanitarian crisis through prevention and the resolution of conflicts, while also involving women. We need to implement silencing the guns by 2020. We also need to find lasting solutions to forced displacement on the African continent. And one other aspect that actually appeared many times is the need for us to fight the issue of statelessness, because so many African citizens are stateless, and these people are victims and vulnerable to exploitation. And it is also important for us to find a lasting solution to the people who are stateless. It is need for us to work relentlessly to build the resilience of the African people towards natural disasters and climate change. We need to find ways and means to ensure the education of refugee and IDP children. More than 12 million children today do not go to school in conflict areas. And it is also important to pay particular attention to girls and women who, because of their vulnerable nature, actually are victims of forced displacement. We need to mobilize resources that will enable us to tackle the root causes of forced displacement on the African continent, provide assistance to member states which are hosting refugees. These countries, despite their limited resources, actually show proof of exemplary solidarity towards African refugees. It is also important to operationalize the humanitarian agency. The African Commission is doing all it can to expedite the operationalization of this fund. Africa has to make its voice heard, and it has to contribute towards resolving humanitarian problems on the continent. There is a consultant who has been hired, and the report will be submitted to the policy organs of our organization in the near future. Distinguished heads of state, the signing and ratification, and particularly the domestication of the 2 major instruments concerning refugees, have also been retained. We have 9 more countries that have not yet signed these instruments. And it is also important to strengthen coordination and synergy between humanitarian action of the African Union, the regional economic communities, the regional mechanisms, and global initiatives to boost the humanitarian action. Several activities will be undertaken at member states and regional economic communities and the organs of the African Union. For these noble objectives to be achieved, your Assembly designated His Excellency President Obiang Nguema Mbasoko as the champion of the theme, and we can actually want to ensure the new champion of our full support and
Excellence, Monsieur le Président de la Conférence, Mesdames et Messieurs, telle est la substance de la déclaration issue du débat sur la note conceptuelle et la feuille de route concernant le thème que nous soumettons à votre auguste Assemblée. Je vous remercie pour votre aimable attention.
أتوجه بالشكر إلى السيد الرئيس أوبيانغ والسيدة مفوضة الشؤون السياسية على العرضين الهامين اللذين أبرزا الأهمية البالغة.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président. Nous avons eu la présentation de notre thème qui s'inscrit dans le cadre de notre agenda de 2063. Le Conseil exécutif de l'Union africaine a examiné cette question dans les détails de manière constructive. Donc, je proposerai que nous adoptions les conclusions du Conseil exécutif sur ce sujet. Est-ce qu'il y a des observations? Je n'en vois pas. Majesté, Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, je voudrais maintenant dire, puisque nous accusons un retard, je voudrais donc proposer, ou plutôt donner la parole à M. Mourad Bendia, le secrétaire général de la Commission, pour qu'il nous dise à quelle heure nous devons revenir dans l'après-midi. Merci, Excellence. Comme vous l'avez dit, nous avons un grand retard. Par conséquent, je voudrais suggérer que la séance de l'après-midi reprenne dans 2 heures, c'est-à-dire à 17h45. Nous allons prendre une pause de 2 heures pour le déjeuner. Merci beaucoup. Donc, nous arrivons à la fin de la cérémonie d'ouverture. Je vous remercie. La séance est levée.
Excusez.
Simone.